In this video, we are going to talk about the validated entries widget from the ttkwigets library. We are going to run the example and talk about some stuff. So after installing the library, people install ttkwigets, copying the example and running the example, you get this. So you got labels, entries, but you do not get these buttons. I added them. I will explain later why. These entries are created using a concept already existing in Python tkinter, using also a mechanism in tk that allows you to validate or create a validation mechanism for the input you put in your entries, and also to restrict the entries or the values you can put in these entries. The idea of these buttons is to check whether or not the entries or the values I entered are valid, but in most cases they are not necessary. So you have the capitalized string entry. You can start or write strings that start with the capitalized letter. If I write a minuscule, at first it will not work, so I have to start with the capitalized letter, then add the remaining letters. The email entry, you must have a string in the format of an email. For example, if I write this without an address, it will accept it, but if you check its validity, it will return false. So to be true, I had to add dot and other letters. Now if I check the validity, it's true. The float entry, we have a problem with this widget. I'm going to talk about it in another video. We are supposed to enter only on float values. For example, 25 is for now can be considered as float. This is float, but these are not. Percent entry, you enter values in integer between 0 or 100, or float values between 0 and 1. This is the behavior we want. When you use this percent entry, for example, when you write 12 points, it will be accepted, which is not correct. You can even add letters and it will generate exception. So for so far, we have two entries that do not work well. We have the float entry and the percent entry. The int entry, you can enter only int values. Even if you click on is valid, it will return true. The lower string entry, you cannot write majuscule or capitalized letters. You can write only minuscules and no digits. Password entry, you can write your password, but when you check its validity, it will return false if it's not correct. The password entry, in order to have a valid password, it must be at least 8 characters long with 1 minuscule, at least 1 majuscule, and at least also, and 1 digit and 1 specific or special character from a specific set of special characters. So if I write this password and I check it out, it's not valid. I had to add a specific character or special character, a majuscule and a digit in order to be valid. We have the upper string entry. You must have majuscules. If I write minuscules, they will not be accepted. I have to write uppercase letters. How is it supposed to work? You create special entries from the string module, for example, the upper string entry, or from the numbers module, the float entry belonging to validated entry module from ttkwigets. So after doing this import, you create your entry class and you call a specific method called configure validator. These entries are created on a mechanism already existing in Python and tkinter, which allows you to create a validation method or to define a validation method associated with the specific event. For example, a key event when you write on the entry, or focus out event when you exit an entry. For example, here for our password, we were able to write whatever we wanted, but the validation happen when we exit or focus out the entry. This is why I had to click on this button to be able to check the validity of the entry. And what does this button do? We just call the validate method from the entry widget or from the special entry widget. So here the code or the example, it's simple. You import or they import all the widgets from the validated entries module from ttkwigets. Then they filter out only the widgets that end with the word entry, and then they start creating for each entry a corresponding label that will have the name of that entry class. Then they call the special method configure validator. There is a problem here. If you use the ttkwigets, none of the entries will work, and this is why. The validator method will call the validate method that will register the actual command and the actual event, the validation command event, using the parameters recuperated from the validator associated with the special entry. The problem is that this line was added that was updating the new configuration, the recuperated commands and events from the validated entry with the previous one, with the old ones that do not have any command and any event associated. So I had to comment this out to make the configure validator work, otherwise it wouldn't have worked. So we have our label, the class, the entry, special entry class, the configure validator call. We didn't have to specify, or they didn't have to specify any parameter. And I added this button that will have on his command the call of the validate method associated with the entry widget. So after correcting the validated entry widget, the capitalized string entry worked, the email entry worked for now, the int entry, the lower string entry, the password entry, and the upper string entry, the one that didn't work correctly, are the percent entry and the float entry. I will tell you how to correct them in the next video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.